There are only a handful of franchises that never missed with their villains quite like Kung Fu Panda. The original three movies have been touted as masterpieces, a trilogy consistent in its quality and, more to the topic of this video, in its villains. I'm sure you've seen videos covering the said antagonists, videos on Tai Lung, the first villain of the series and arguably the most iconic as he was the personification of badassery and tragedy. I'm also pretty certain that a lot of people have made videos regarding Shen, personally my favorite of the trilogy, highlighting what it means to be an irredeemable bastard of a character. These two in particular have been talked about to death as they are brimming with nuances and complexities that makes for pretty good white noise as you eat pizza or something. And I'm not here to bring down these amazing adversaries for Poe, they are deserving of their recognition. All I'm saying is that there is one more villain in the conversation that has the same right to the flowers those two have been given. A villain that hasn't been talked about enough and, ironically, has his recognition buried because of his contemporaries. I'm talking about, of course, the Beast of Vengeance, the maker of widows, Kai.
Dun dun da dun, dun dun da dun, dun dun da dun, dun 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 dun.
I want to be honest here for a second. Kung Fu Panda 3 is my least watched movie out of trilogy. Not because it was a bad movie or anything, it was just because of circumstance. It released at a time when I was super busy with a lot of stuff and I didn't have a lot of space in my schedule for anything fun. With that being the case, I don't remember this movie as fondly as the other two, movies that I still know by heart to this day. It's so bad that I actually forgot the name of the villain before rewatching it, which is very fitting as this was a running gag in the story itself. This is a testament on how Kai doesn't receive the appreciation he deserves. If he did, then I would most likely remember his name simply by just reading a post or watching videos about him. And at a glance, it doesn't really make sense. He had everything going for him. The looks, the aura, the J.K. Simmons voice, he was destined for greatness through concept alone. Still, if you were to make a poll on which Kung Fu Panda villain is your favorite, I believe he'd have the lowest percentage. So, let's mend that by talking about this overly buff yak and just gush on how great he is. To make a great villain, he must have a dramatic entrance. Now, this isn't really a hard and fast rule, but to me, first impressions matter a lot when it comes to introducing characters in general. And this is something Kung Fu Panda villains have perfected. When we were introduced to Tai Lung, he was literally chained with a jigsaw contraption and imprisoned in that universe's version of Impel Down. But with a single feather, a single oversight, he fought his way out of the prison and showed exactly how dangerous of a fighter he truly was. As for Shen, he literally waltzed inside Gongman City and murdered Kung Fu President with a cannon, demonstrating his cunning ruthlessness. Kai continued on this trend of great introduction, and in the context of the universe, he had the most impressive feat out of all of them. In the spirit realm where Oogway was just vibing, he was suddenly attacked by the Blades of Chaos, immediately recognizing these weapons as Kai's. From across the small islet in the spirit realm, Kai's green eyes stare intently towards his enemy. In a few lines, we are given background as to why this fairy Kratos attacked the actual chillest person in the verse, as he was an old friend of Oogway, and 500 years ago, they fought. A tussle Oogway won. A defeat Kai seeks redemption for. Immediately, we are shown the terrifying brute strength of Kai. First, with the visual of him easily slicing through a small islet, and second, with him keeping up with basically Kung Fu Jesus, ultimately sealing his victory as he captured Oogway and adding him to the collection of the Kung Fu masters he stole chi from, masters that have fallen beneath his feet. From the moment he steps onto the scene, Kai checked off one of the most important things you have to have as a villain, being a genuine, active threat, something the movie franchise understands. Tai Lung achieved this by being the most skilled martial artist we've seen all throughout the first movie, while Shen threatened all of China with his genocidal lunacy paired with a sharp, conniving mind. Kai, on the other hand, was a threat comparable to that of a force of nature, with pure and raw strength, with persistence and dedication to crawl his way out of hell for 500 years just to wreak havoc in the realm of the living. His introduction to the story was superb, going even beyond the level of Shen as a genuine danger to the world of Kung Fu Panda. Seeing that this was the third movie, this is actually the bare minimum threat level they should have as a villain, a raid boss that would take more than just Kung Fu to beat. But of course, introductions are not everything. For a character should go beyond his initial presentation and actually should have meat on their bones. And let me tell you, sports fans, Kai is one meaty boy. It is kind of a trademark now that the villain of a Kung Fu Panda movie should be packed with lore and nuance to try its absolute damnedest to not be a one-dimensional villain. Tragedy is also another part of the Kung Fu Panda villain's story, Tai Lung being a great example of a tragic villain that was not redeemed, and Shen, although being an evil bastard, has somewhat of a tragic origin, however petty and irrational it is. Kai, in a similar vein, has tragedy injected to his DNA. You see, 500 years ago, there were two warriors that fought side by side each other, and they both led a great army through their ambition. One was our peace-loving goofball Oogway, and the other was General Kai. They were brother in arms. We can only assume that they both had the same goal in mind, having such an army at their beck and call. However, one day, they were ambushed, and that left Oogway fatally wounded. As his brother, Kai carried Oogway in his arms for days, searching for a way to save his friend. That's when they came across a village of pandas, ancient healers that used chi to help Oogway recover. And when he did, Oogway learned the ways of the panda, the way they give chi back onto the world, and through this teaching, Oogway turned a new leaf, abandoning his views of conquest and thus starting his path on inner peace. Kai, however, did not see eye to eye with Oogway, as he saw chi as something he should take for his own, a power he could use to subjugate the world. Oogway could not stand idly by, as he knew that only he could stop his brother. With this response, Kai felt betrayed, because for the longest time he and Oogway shared the same goals, shared the same side of the battlefield, even saving Oogway's life. And now, his brother stood at the other end. And so they fought. For days they fought, a battle of chi and ideals. In the end, Oogway won, banishing Kai to the spirit realm, the ultimate betrayal. For 500 years after, Oogway spent this time to become Turtle Buddha and tried his best to cover his past, which also meant burying Kai with it. So when Kai finally crawled his way out of hell, no one could even remember him, while Oogway is pretty much a cultural icon. In a way, I understand Kai's crash outs. Imagine fighting alongside someone you trust, having the same goal in life, then after saving him from the brink of death, you find him turning into a hippie and telling you to chill out like he wasn't the same as you a few days ago. That definitely warrants you going full Kratos. This backstory for Kai carved out a lot of depth to his character, as the scar of his went on to be a pretty strong piece of firewood to stoke the flames of his vengeance, giving his presence and impact on the story that little bit of extra oomph. I've mentioned before in my past videos that you should watch, that a villain should have two things to be iconic. First is his presentation, and on the surface, Kai's design is very visually striking. I would say even more so than Tai Lung, but not as much as Shen, which is understandable. His deep jade eyes, the Eddie Hall build, the dual chain blades he fashioned after his original bladed staff was broken in half, his damn horns that protrudes from his helmet forming the silhouette of a Chinese war general. He has got it all. Not to mention being voiced by Omni-Man, and you got yourself a free credit increase for your aura. Kai in the story is the ultimate threat to the world of Kung Fu, so looking like Hall of Pain Mark Henry with horns is an appropriate representation of that type of character. Pair that with the way he was animated and the way he fights and monologues, then you've got me going like this guy from American Dad. However, presentation alone does not mean a villain is iconic, which is why a second, arguably more crucial aspect should be presence. This is where Kai, to me, falls short from his predecessors, his impact towards the story. Now, don't get me wrong, as a standalone villain, he is by far and beyond one of the most impactful characters for a movie. He is a terrifying, slow creeping inevitability that murks Kung Fu masters all over China one by one, the central inciting event that lets the movie's plot revolve around him. In universe, no one has impacted the world as much as Kai did. However, in a story standpoint, he does lag behind the impact of both Tai Lung and Shen. And the reason for that is their intimate chemistry with the characters. Looking at Tai Lung's impact as a character, he not only acts as the main threat of the story, he also plays as the main foil for Po as the Dragon Warrior, acting directly as a dark reflection of what he could have been, a warrior confident in his abilities but denied by destiny, falling into villainy. More importantly, he was also Master Shifu's greatest scar, directly affecting Shifu's characterization all throughout the movie and becoming his path towards development. Tai Lung is a character that played well with the movie's theme of destiny, making his impact more felt. Shen, on the other hand, took a more personal approach in his impact towards Po's development. He is Po's antithesis, the malicious weaponry versus Po's Kung Fu. He is also Po's scar, his biggest hurdle in attaining inner peace, the inciting incident on his whole being. Shen is another character that fits well with the movie's theme, which is finding peace with oneself. Having to follow up these two was a Herculean task, and may very well be the main reason why Kai is as underrated as he is. However, that isn't to say Kai failed in the impact department. It's just that his impact is just much subtler. Kung Fu Panda's third movie tackled the theme of struggling with one's identity, with who Po is as a character. Who was he as a person? A panda? The dragon warrior? A teacher? The son of a panda or a goose? This is the main idea the movie revolves around. Unlike Tai Lung, who fought against Po's destiny directly, or Shen that impeded Po's path to inner peace, Kai was not really the biggest factor in Po's identity crisis, emphasized a lot more with their limited interaction. However, Kai still played a big role in being Po's foil, for he too was a victim of an identity crisis. From the moment he stepped back onto the mortal realm, no one seemed to remember him. He had a plethora of epithets and titles earned through his skill and conquest, yet still, he was met with only confusion as to who he is, even by those close to Oogway. In a way, he was unknown, erased more specifically. One thing was for certain though, he was a threat to the realm with his overwhelming power and mastery over Chi, a concept that would be his greatest downfall. For you see, Oogway prophesies that the only one capable of defeating Kai is a master of Chi. And we all know in the end, that would be Po. So in order for Po to master Chi, he has to go back to its roots, to its old masters, to his lineage, the Pandas. However, in the 500 years since Kai was defeated, the Pandas have forgotten how to use Chi, their own identity. So Po had to do it in the old-fashioned way, through good old Kung Fu, stepping up as the teacher Shifu wanted him to be. Slowly, he realizes what he is meant to be. However, this was not enough to stop Kai. For you see, Kai has grown stronger, far stronger than what Po could have ever imagined. He has taken on every master in China in search for Po, absorbing their chi and building an army out of Jane zombies. For the most part, he let these zombies, as they were referred to, do his bidding. And with these stolen powers, he outmatched Po, beating him down in a way Tai Lung nor Shen could ever do with their bare hands. Not even the Wuxi fingerhold, Po's ultimate attack, was effective against Kai, for he is no mortal. And so, with no choice left, Po had to take him to the spirit realm by force. Returning back to hell, Kai was enraged. So as a payback, Kai captured the panda, intending to take his chi as well, his ultimate goal. However, as Oogway said at the beginning of the movie, the dildo of consequence seldom comes lubed. The more you take, the less you have. You see, chi is about giving. It is also mastered only when you know who you are meant to be. Po, having taught his people and his loved ones who they really were, has also taught them how to use chi, allowing them to give Po the power he needs to break free from Kai's chains and ultimately, upon realizing his own identity, defeats the beast of vengeance. Kai, on the other hand, only took what isn't his. Instead of finding chi within himself by recognizing his own identity, he rampaged all throughout China and stole the identity of others, using them as his tool for destruction. This mindset of his was his downfall. He never mastered chi. He never gave back to the world, only taking and taking, and because of that, he had less and less of an identity. I think it's rather meta that because of this very action, stealing more renowned masters and allowing his Jade Goons to fight on his stead, letting them have a share of his screen time, Kai became a lot less memorable. He also had kind of a hard time standing out because he was kind of a mixture of both Tai Lung and Shen, combining raw skill and mental strength, thus being less effective than either of his predecessors as that archetype. At the end of the day, Kai provided menace, danger, and fear, qualities that a villain should have. But he also had a touch of nuance in him that made him feel fresh. He is an underrated villain that deserves more love. I do wish that he had more screen time in the film and more interactions with Po, but what we have is also wonderful. I hope they make more villains like him in the future, and yes, let's pretend Kung Fu Panda 4 doesn't exist for now. I'll watch it after this video is released. So yeah, go hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.